Good morning, Faith Community. I'm going to be answering the first question in our Q&A series this week. If you have questions, go ahead and send them to us. You can message us on Facebook. You can email them to me at pastorcaleb@faith2u.com. Reach out. We want to hear your questions. We're going to be basing our devotions for the next several days on questions we hear from our congregation. So send those my way if you want me to answer them. Well, today's question is this: is it ever right to disobey the government when righteous obedience is possible? In other words, in a situation where you could obey the government, but you think that you're supposed to do something else, something that's good, but there's a way maybe to tailor your approach, there's a way to change it so that you could obey the government and obey the conviction of the Spirit based on the Word of God. Is there ever a time, though, the question is asking, is there ever right to disobey the government when righteous obedience is possible? Now, really, the only place that we have clarity are when the two are opposed to each other. When we see God has commanded me to do one thing and the people are commanding me to do something else, I know who I have to obey. That's easy. That's clear. That's what we see in Acts chapter 5. Remember, the Sanhedrin had forbidden Peter and the other apostles to preach in the name of Jesus, and he said, I have to obey God. I can't obey you. I have to preach the gospel. Jesus commanded me to do that. That's a command from Jesus. I have to do it. But what I want to do is I want to explore the life of Christ. And we're going to take two examples from the life of Jesus over the next 2 days. And we're going to look at places where he could have changed his practice to accommodate the governing officials and still have been walking in obedience to the law of God. But he didn't. So we're going to look at two places where Jesus chose to disobey even though obedience was possible. Now, to really get into this question, we need to talk about who the governing authorities were in Jesus' day. So you need to understand a little bit of the structure of the system of Roman government. The Romans, when they took over, they left civil authorities in place in the Jewish nation. And what I mean by that is that there were local Jewish religious leaders who had authority that was given to them by the Romans. This is why in John 11, we were just talking about this in the sermon yesterday, in John 11, the Pharisees, the chief priests, and the scribes, they're all concerned that they're going to lose their place of authority over the Jews. That's why they say in John 11:48, they're afraid the Romans are going to take away their place and their nation. They had authority over the Jews, but that was given to them by the Romans. Jesus also recognized the chief priests and the elders and the scribes as authorities that the disciples should obey. He actually tells them to obey those authorities in Matthew chapter 23. He says this: you need to obey them because they sit in Moses' seat, in Matthew 23:2. He goes on and explains that in chapter 23:3. He says, whatever they command you to observe, that observe and do, but do not do according to their works, for they say and do not do. So first thing I want you to understand as we get into this discussion, this question is a tricky question, is it depends. And what we see here is in Jesus' day, there's a system of government. And part of that system in government includes local religious authority that's over the people. It's over Jesus. It's over the disciples. These local magistrates, these local rulers of synagogues, they have authority in their jurisdiction. And it's an authority that Rome recognizes, and it's an authority that Jesus recognizes. So I want you to get that these are governing authorities. They have power in Jesus' day. What we're going to look at is where the conflict was. In Jesus' day, a lot of the conflict revolved around the Sabbath law. You see, these local governing authorities, they made laws about what was allowed and what was not allowed on the Sabbath. And specifically with the life of Christ, we want to look at laws about healing. They had laws about helping people who had physical maladies, helping people who were hurt or injured or sick. And what the rule was is if it was a matter of life and death, then you could minister to them. You could take care of their needs on the Sabbath. One example is, they have an example, if somebody, a landslide comes and buries them, you could dig them out on the Sabbath to save their life. So that's a matter of life and death. If you don't dig them out, they're going to die. But if it's not a matter of life and death, they just injured themselves. They just, maybe it's a wound that they're not going to bleed to death, a broken bone, they're not going to die from that. Just leave them alone, take care of it tomorrow. That's the law. That's the law of the land. If it's not a matter of life and death, leave them alone. So this is the law. In Jesus' day, this is what people are supposed to do. But what do we see Jesus doing on the Sabbath? We see him repeatedly throughout his ministry healing on the Sabbath. That was against their law. It was against the local authorities, what they were telling him he was supposed to do. Now I want you to think about that, and we're going to look at a specific example here in Luke chapter 13. So in Luke chapter 13, we have this story of a woman who's been bent over, disabled by a spirit, it says, for 18 years. So her spine is bent at this angle and she can't straighten up for 18 years. And she comes into the synagogue where Jesus is on the Sabbath. Now you need to understand the synagogue. There's a ruler of the synagogue. That's his jurisdiction. That's where he has authority. And what Jesus does is he heals this woman of her ailment on the Sabbath. The response of the ruler of the synagogue is, he says this in Luke 13:14, there are 6 days on which men ought to work. Therefore come and be healed on them and not on the Sabbath day. That's in Luke 13:14. So what is he saying? He's saying, hey, this isn't an issue of life and death. She's been bent over like this for 18 years. She's been fine for 18 years. So come tomorrow. Don't come on Sabbath. Come tomorrow. That's what he's saying. He's not saying to Jesus, you can't heal. What he's saying is, you can't heal today. You need to heal tomorrow. But what does Jesus do? He disobeys. He disobeys this ruler of the synagogue. Why? Because the ruler of the synagogue doesn't understand what the Sabbath is all about. And Jesus is going to show with his actions that are going against this civil authority what the law of the Sabbath is all about. Jesus goes on and he explains to them that their system is inconsistent. And the reason it's inconsistent is because if an animal falls into a ditch on the Sabbath day, they'll rescue that animal. Well, that's a matter of convenience to them. They prioritize that over humans who are in pain. Jesus is making an argument from the lesser to the greater. We see throughout Scripture we need to have a higher value for human life than animal life. And Jesus is showing them your system is inconsistent. Your application of the law is wrong. So what Jesus does is he reveals to them from the law that their authority that they think they have and their interpretation of the law is incorrect. And he therefore does not need to obey them. Now, we need to be careful here, because this doesn't mean that we can always disobey civil authorities if we think that they are wrong. It means instead that the law of doing good to our sister or our brother is a higher law than the local application of the law. It's more important for us to prioritize doing good, helping, ministering to others than the rules. Here's an example I want to give you. As a cross-country coach, it sort of bothers me. They have this rule where if you're running a race and somebody on another team trips and falls and you go and you help that person, you're disqualified. Now, I wanted all of my runners, if that happened in a race, I wanted them to get disqualified. Even though that was against the rule, I wanted them to minister to that person. I wanted them to help that person. I wanted them prioritizing the needs of others over that rule for how they're supposed to run the race. And why was that? It's because it's more important to do good than to obey a rule like that precludes me, that prevents me from doing good. That says you can only do good in this way on these days and these places. This is how you can do it. Now be careful, this doesn't mean that we can just decide we can do whatever we want whenever we want. What it means is we need to be attentive to the Spirit. I'm going to show you another example of this tomorrow in the life of Christ, and I'm going to draw a conclusion from both of these examples. So if you want to hear the conclusion that I'm going to draw, you have to listen tomorrow. Thanks so much for listening today. Tomorrow we'll explore the same question in more depth.